Hello and welcome to this session of the European University Summit, where in the next 45 minutes or so, we will be talking about how to accelerate Europe's new skills agenda, how to encourage students to think about their own skills development, and what benefits industry partnerships can bring. Joining me today is João Fernandes, Professor and Associate Dean of Undergraduate Medical Education at the University of Minho, Andrei Sazakin, Vice Rector of Academic Development at Ural Federal University, and Nayeli Wild, Director of Partnerships, EMEA and APAC at Coursera. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. As Charlotte mentioned, we will be taking questions throughout our discussion, so please do drop those in the chat box that you see at the right of your screen. I, of course, have my own, so let's get started. My first question to the panel is just to talk about, if we're talking about the new skills agenda in Europe, what exactly does that mean? Tell me what you think the impact of the pandemic has had on the demand for digital skills and perhaps how those skills have changed. Andrei, can I go to you for that one?
Yes, thank you very much. I can start. Of course, pandemic leads to increase of in demand of digital skills. Before pandemic, we have a great demand from traditional IT companies and modern companies such as bank, telecom operators. But after pandemic, all our partners have to use remote works, and all students across all disciplines started to learn digital skills and apply them on their work or on their future work. Of course, it was relatively easy for IT. It's sometimes harder for engineering students because they need not only to create some digital twin or a digital model of equipment, but also have to create some things physically used in equipment. And we have we have some troubles with humanitarian disciplines, but most of them nowadays use digital skills. For example, in digital marketing, I don't know is marketing nowadays can be without digital skills. And the most significant was in fields like medicines. We have some medical students. They have a great skepticism related to digital skills, but in cooperation with our government, we have some programs such as IT doctor and so on, some research projects, so how to use, for example, neural network to analyze medical images, and its demand for digital skills in that skeptic areas such as medical students is growing.
Yeah, really interesting points. Thanks, Andrei. I'm going to bring in João now, who is actually working in a medical school. I'm interested to hear how you think perhaps the demand for the types of skills has changed, and have you seen similar pushback from students at your own medical school, similar to what Andrei has said?
Yeah, thank you. So good morning, everyone. Yes, indeed, it changed a lot with the pandemic. And what happened is that we saw an explosion of the use of telemedicine in clinical practice. So we had to adapt that and to incorporate that into our curriculum. So suddenly we were training our students to communicate with patients via informatics at a distance, and that has also to be trained. So what happened in very few months after the pandemic started was that our students were not going to the hospital anymore. Because in the hospital, most of the visits were moved to telemedicine. And so we also had to train our students in this setting. And suddenly we were training them with a lot of skills that, in my opinion, will be necessary in the future, because telemedicine is here to stay, in my opinion. So these kinds of digital tools coupled with soft skills, as I call them, because you have to train how to communicate. And it's different to communicate with a patient or with your team when you are in the same room or when you are in different rooms using a screen. So you have to learn a new bundle of techniques and skills. And this is what we've been focusing on the last year, but due to the pandemic. So it induced this shift in the training, accelerated the implementation of these digital medicine tools and these soft skills to be used at a distance in the digital world. And I think it will stay the same. The students were, at the beginning, were pushing back against this, but they quickly realized that this is the new future. And I think that in the future, we will need this, not only in medicine, but in many different areas. So collaborating in teams across the internet, in different countries even, is the new normal. So they have to be trained with this. So I think that this mix of soft skills with digital tools and put them together, I think it's one of the things that we learned from the pandemic and that we'll have to pursue in the future.
Yeah, thanks for that. It sounds like a very powerful combination, the combination of digital skills and soft skills. I want to come back to the point about bringing students along with that and kind of getting them, encouraging them to be interested in cultivating their own digital skills. But first, Nelly, let's hear from you in terms of how you've seen perhaps the demand for skills change. And as Andrea said, before the pandemic, we saw it in IT, we saw it in telecommunication. How has demand perhaps increased across different sectors and fields of study?
Yeah, hi everyone. So I'd echo everything everybody said. I think for us at Coursera, we have seen an exponential growth in learners coming to our platform. To give you a few statistics, we've seen 4 times increase in terms of individuals, not only coming to the platform, but using the platform. 9 times increase people coming through government-related channels and programs. And I think for me, the biggest piece around COVID is that it has changed the world, as everybody knows. But what's really changing is the way it's affecting women, workers without degrees, ethnic minorities, and each population that is most affected by this are looking towards what can they do to upskill and reskill to get those jobs. So we've seen an increase in tech and data science, and we've always had that kind of prominence on our platform and that usage, but it's even more so now. COVID has really turbo accelerated the need to address automation and digitization, etc. And what we're seeing is that it's not only individuals that are looking for that change, but governments and businesses are taking action and driving initiatives to kind of address that need. I think what I probably would also say is that we're seeing a change in the way in which our partners that work with us to create courses and specializations and degrees, everybody is passionately working to try and change what we're trying to do, and bring together the different skill sets that you might need in order to be successful in a career, and cross weave interdisciplinary functions, etc., to be able to address the needs that the pandemic is creating. But it's not just data science and tech that we're seeing. Interestingly, we're seeing trends from people that are actually in employment. They're looking for courses in health and well-being and mindfulness, soft skills such as negotiating, etc. So we're seeing an increase across the board, but in particular, data science, tech, health, and the softer skills that you might need to be successful.
Yeah, thanks for that. And you bring up a key point here, Nelly, which is about employability. Andrea, I'm wondering if you could tell us a bit about how your own university, Oral Federal University, is bringing in digital skills and soft skills into the curriculum to help with students' employability.
Yes, we try to connect students with companies, with potential employers as soon as possible. And at our university, we use in many programs, we use project-based learning, and many bachelor students started their projects with first year. And we try to, not for first year, but maybe for second or third year students' projects, topics for that projects came from industry partners, from companies, employers, and maybe government. And because we have a big number of students and we have a big number of projects with various topics, it's not possible to create one curriculum that suits all students in some degree. And to address the problems, we need to ability to quickly find courses on different topics and teach them for students which don't have, for example, background in IT or in medicine and so on. And for example, we have a hackathon with a company which create medical equipments. And in this hackathon, we have two types of participants, IT students and medical students. And we need courses to teach, for example, medical students the basics of IT and IT students the basic of anatomy and so on. And Joe said that soft skills is also important, and I think that I'm not sure how to say cross-cultural communications, how IT students will talk to medical students, because it's very difficult to talk to students in different field and collaborate on one project.
Yeah, excellent. Really good points there. Joao, I know that the Faculty of Medicine at the University of Meow is currently modernizing your curriculum. Tell us a little bit about what role digital skills and soft skills are playing in this process, and how you expect the outcomes to look like for graduates whenever you're encouraging them to pick up both sets.
Yeah. So first, let me just comment on what Andre said, because we are actually doing the same here. So we are teaching our students based on problems. In our case, it's clinical cases and complaints by the patients. And this is the focus of the entire medical curriculum. But we are also putting them in contact with IT students and students from other areas, what we call interprofessional education, because we think that this is really critical, so that they learn the language of other fields. So they go to the IT school and they do a hackathon, exactly as you said, with students from engineering, bioinformatics, to solve real problems. So we present each year, we have a problem and they have to solve it. For last year, for instance, it was for patients with Alzheimer's disease. They had to find a solution to improve the care of patients with Alzheimer's disease. And this can be any idea that can be solved through a new technological solution, even a simple one. And this way we are, training the right sets of skills. In our curriculum, we put this at the forefront of the design of it. So the curriculum is designed so as to incorporate a lot of soft skills, and the two that we prize most are communication, the ability to communicate with the patients and with the colleagues, with other professions, and also the ability to self-reflect. So to reflect on what you do and apply this reflection to the improvement of what you do and your team. And we built this into the curriculum. In many different parts of the curriculum, students are invited to do self-reflections. They receive training on how to improve what you do based on what you feel has gone wrong or right. So they do these self-evaluation exercises and they evaluate their practices. But we also incorporated a lot of digital tools and new technologies right from the beginning, because we realized when we started designing this curriculum that medicine and the society at large is changing fast, and we need to adapt and train students to be in the new society. So we incorporated things like, training in the basics of artificial intelligence, data mining, big data, also telemedicine, remote monitoring of patients, the use of all these devices to monitor patients. And students are trained in this from the beginning. So they go to the places where telemedicine is being practiced. They do research on this, and they have courses in collaboration with, for instance, the engineering department. And also, and that's we established this partnership with Coursera. Also, for instance, we offer them courses on Coursera to upgrade their skills on IT, big data, artificial intelligence, informatics, and other skills that we find are important and which we cannot provide in the school. And so this curriculum is really, the mindset of the curriculum is really the transformation of the society. So we have to prepare our students to be physicians in this new society, and we have to start the earlier the better. That's why.
Joao, let's stay with you. Tell me a little bit about we've spoken a little bit about some student pushback for this because perhaps this digital skills training isn't what they expect from their university experience when they have this idea of really knowledge creation. Tell us a little bit about what universities can do to encourage students to develop their own skills, have that skills-based approach to learning, and really, I guess, grasp it and encounter it with enthusiasm.
Yeah, so I think the key word here is enthusiasm and motivation. So what you need to do is from the beginning, try to cultivate this enthusiasm in students. And of course, it also starts in the faculty. So you have to have your teachers motivated and enthusiastic about this so that they contaminate students. So what we do from the beginning, we make students understand, and of course you can tell them this, but it's better if they experience it, that the society is changing and also their practice will change in the future, so that knowledge is not the only cornerstone of medical practice anymore. So of course you need to know, but that's not enough to be a good practicing physician in the future. So what we do, we make them experience, for instance, the way medicine is practiced in the most advanced settings with telemonitoring and things like that. We discuss cases with them and we make them reflect on the changes that society is living through and what the impact that has in medicine. So we do exercises with them like, okay, what has changed from the way medicine was practiced 10 years ago to now? What has the pandemic brought in? And they start to realize that really these new digital skills, these IT skills are really critical for them. And when they gain that insight, they suddenly are motivated and they realize that that's really important. Of course, you have to support them in this, because the other thing that comes up when they start to realize that they need these sets of skills is that they think it's very hard for them to live in and study in a university that's focused on skills, because they are trained for several years before they come in to our school to have a knowledge-based curriculum, particularly in high school, middle school. And so when they come up, they say, well, but I'm not trained to this. How can you navigate a curriculum that's based on skills? How are the assessments? How is the progression? How are you going to score me? Because I need a score in the end. So all these questions then need to be navigated with students, and you have to be very open and very frank with them and try to address their concerns in a positive way. So of course you cannot do everything that they want, but you have to listen to them and make them be part of the solution. And I think this is something that we are still learning how to do, but these are the key things to have into consideration to have the students on your side, which I think is most important.
Yeah, thanks for that. Andre, how about you? How can universities better kind of re-educate students to expect a combination of skills-based approach and knowledge-based approach in their education?
So our approach, based on collaboration with industry, we try to invite industry partners, for example, for projects, for hackathons, for lectures, and our industry partners present ideal tasks on which we are actually working nowadays, and our industry partners tell us and our students that they not need, for example, a very good mechanical engineer, but we need mechanical engineer who know digital skills, or they require electrical engineer with very strong digital skills. Such electrical engineer should know how to use, for example, machine learning to predict energy consumption, or he or she should know how to use information security to protect equipment, because it's very important nowadays. And this is one part, so it provides motivation. And the second part, we need to find such a type of courses for each. Our university has a very broad number of fields of study, and we need to try to find digital courses for mechanical engineers, for chemical engineers, for physicals, for humanitarian, for economists. And for that, we use Coursera. We very great that we created a partnership agreement with Coursera, and now we can use courses from Coursera and other types of online courses. For example, we use our national open educational platform in Russia.
Naili, I want to bring you in here and tell us a little bit about the trends that you've seen at Coursera, about the changing ways that learners are prioritizing their studies and how they're studying.
Yeah, sure. So I think, taking a step back and thinking about the trends, for me, the biggest trend that we're seeing is the acceptance of online education. A few years ago, people didn't really know what a MOOC was, or what they could do with regards to online education. They didn't even know where to go or where to look. And pre-COVID, that was being accepted more. But I think Europe was still leagues behind, say, other countries like the US in that acceptance and that use of the online education. And COVID's come and has basically revolutionized everything. Now we see that learners know what there is available. They have choice. And we're then seeing higher education institutions and industry then looking to see how they can perfect all the years of pedagogical training, etc., that they had to change that into an online forms of learning. So the two together, the choice that learners know that they have, together with the waking up of higher education and the perfecting of how they can actually deliver better learning programs through online and digital mediums, is seeing a massive influx of learners coming to our platform. To give you a kind of comparative figures, pre-pandemic, we had 38 million learners, and now we have 82 million learners. And that's increasing year on year on year, or will be, hopefully, with this reawakening. I think in terms of what they study, I've already covered the fact that there's been a rise in data science, tech, business, health, etc. What's interesting for me is that we're seeing a new type of learner coming to our platform. So before, we're very much centered around mature learners or mature professionals coming to upskill. And now we're seeing learners that either need to reskill due to, as I've mentioned, unemployment, or other options, undergraduate learners, younger learners that are looking to basically start their lifelong learning a trajectory that might be coming directly to Coursera or through other mediums such as the universities that we work with, or governments or businesses. And they require different things, and they're looking for different things. And I think what we're seeing is the emergence of new forms of online learning that are reaching the platform. As mentioned before, previously, we're very much centered around business and technology and data science, but we're seeing interest from our partners in looking to tackle other areas of the curriculum and move that online, such as, for example, social sciences and psychology. So the more that happens, the more there will be an increased appetite for learners to learn different things. In terms of how they study and the trends that we're seeing there with learners, as mentioned, previous type of learner was a mature professional, and flexibility and the need for flexibility was always really important. They need to fit their learning around their lives and around their career trajectory, and weave modular programs into and alongside their day-to-day. With the new type of learners that we're seeing that I've mentioned before, it doesn't matter what type of learner they are, they all need the flexibility, but interestingly, flexibility not only in terms of what they're studying, but how they're studying. So the use of mobile technology and being able to access things on mobile devices has become really, really important. And we're seeing trends in how those types of learners are accessing their learning materials, not through your kind of traditional laptop, but on their mobiles. There's a big debate at the moment around what's important to learners. You hear it time and time and time again in all these discussion forums. And what's interesting is the way in which the pandemic has kind of influenced us as human beings. We've reached a phase that we're comfortable with digital technology, communicating via Zoom, etc. But there's a huge fatigue, and people need interaction, and they're looking for ways to interact. So what we're seeing on the platform is a rise in peer interaction that's taking place between the students They're engaging more in debates on the platform. They're relishing more the projects and so on and so forth. So we're seeing a real kind of take up in that. And I think how we are able to get through this period is how we can meet that need that we have as human beings and enhance it and enhance our online learning programs, taking that in mind. I think the other thing that we've noticed that's different is that there are higher expectations. The higher expectations from our learners in terms of what they can and what they can expect from online learning and what they can expect from higher education in general. Obviously, education costs are staying the same. Establishments are moving online and looking to blended learning, whether willingly or unwillingly. And there are more options for fully online programs. And the quality of these is improving month by month. You know, we have generations of instructional designers that are basically perfecting their model and honing and finessing that. And we're also seeing a rise in non-HE credit-bearing credentials that are putting a big pressure on higher education and the value of the degree in its traditional sense. You know, big companies such as Google are changing their hiring practices and are accepting people without degrees, but with project-based learning and other types of credentials. So people are expecting more from their money, both in terms of the learning experience and in terms of the outcomes that they can bring. And that demand, we're hearing that on the platform and we're seeing it on the platform. And as I've mentioned before, we've had a huge rise up in the take up of our programs, but particularly around the online degrees that we're offering and the professional certificates and credentials that then have that kind of clear career outcome and you know, hiring pathway at the end of it.
Yeah, thanks, Nelly. That I'm sure definitely some trends that universities themselves are also seeing in terms of flexibility, quality of online courses, and perhaps a rethink of the traditional four-year degree. I've got a question here, actually two questions that are quite related. So I'm going to ask just one of them, and I'm going to put it to Andre first, and then Joao, I'd like to hear you as well. Do you opt for explicit or implicit skill development integrated in every course or in a different module? Andre.
Yes, sure. From our perspective, it is better to use explicit skill development module, and other modules should be concentrated on knowledge, because actually for this skill development module, we use a project-based approach. And when one discipline includes projects, and maybe other professors also want to include projects in his course, it's good if one or two professors, but what from our experience, it's often for good programs, 3 or 4 professors try to use project-based skill development approaches, and which leads to students overloads. They not be able to do all work they need to have to present, and either they do a trivial works and don't acquire required skills, or they have to drop the program.
Thanks for that. Joao, what about you?
So we also think that an explicit approach is better. So we have explicitly put in the curriculum periods in which students must learn a given skill, and this is particularly important for digital skills. So we have courses and periods of the year in which they have to be trained on this and have to acquire these quick skills. The same for some soft skills, such as, for instance, doctor-to-patient communication and things like that. But we also believe that this training of these skills and particularly the practice of them should not be confined to these moments. So what we do is that across the curriculum, in different learning moments, we try to get our students to practice the skills they are acquiring in an informal way. So I would say that we have this blending between explicit moments, which we think are very important, particularly for the students to acquire a new set of skills in the organized way, let's say, and then we make them practice throughout the rest of the curriculum in different moments in a more informal and not in an implicit way, let's say.
João, let's stay with you because I want to move on to speaking about assessments and how universities meaningfully measure students' skills and learning outcomes. How do you think assessments factor into this, and how does that play out at your own institution?
So assessment is definitely very important for this, and we know that there's this old saying that says that assessment drives learning, or that assessment is learning. I don't know which one is true, but definitely assessment is an integral part of it. And what is known is that if you don't assess it, then probably it doesn't matter for students, because at least in our case, students are mostly concerned with assessments. So you have to assess it. And when you move to a skills-based curriculum, or when you incorporate explicitly skills into your curriculum, you definitely have to make sure that students achieve those skills. So you have to think of assessment. When we designed our curriculum, assessment was at the forefront of our thoughts from the beginning. So we have embedded assessment moments in which students have to practice, they have to execute a task under observation by a supervisor, and they get feedback from what they are doing. And we think that this kind of feedback assessment is very important, because it not only allows the school to have an idea of how the student is performing that skill and the degree of achievement of the student, but also is part of the training of that skill by the student, because the student is receiving feedback and is improving his or her performance. So we incorporate feedback as part of learning. So our students, in terms of skills, of practical skills, they are always being assessed. They know the moments in which they are doing that, because it's when they are practicing. So if, for instance, when you're talking about the communication skills, every time they encounter a patient and there's a supervisor there, the supervisor in the end assesses the student. We have a very simple way of assessing it using a score, and gives detailed feedback to the student so that the student can improve. Of course, we also have more formal moments of assessment, in which we require students to go through a series of stations, and they have to perform tasks, and we are assessing their skills. And these include things like, even using a computer program to do analysis of data, or talking to a patient, doing a physical examination, and interpreting data. So all these kinds of skills are being assessed in more formal moments, but also, and for me, the most important part, every day when the student is practicing it, is receiving feedback, and at the same time is being assessed. Another thing that I would like to raise for discussion, I don't know if anyone wants to pick on this, is the credentiation of these skills. So how can we then, based on these assessments that we're making, make sure that the student has attained a certain level that we deem necessary for the student to be considered proficient, or some kind of enabled to perform a task, or having a skill in a degree that we have, that we think is enough. And this is another question, which of course is important. It deals with assessment, but also with other, political, let's say, issues.
Yeah, definitely. And that was something that Nelly had brought up, was just rethinking credentials, bringing in informal credentials, and how they're seeing a trend for that. Andre, do you want to come in on that and just perhaps give us your thoughts about, is there a need to get some more informal credentials happening within a university journey, and how exactly would that look?
Actually, it's a controversial topic. Most of our students came to university to get an university degree. If they don't need a degree, they probably can acquire some certification or skills in the internet or small companies. And currently, we're not sure is it required. We certainly try to do some approach. If, for example, if students acquire some certificate from Coursera or another platform, or for example from Hackathon or other tech company, we try to give students some credits for that work. And we collaborate with Coursera, with other companies. For example, we have in Russia Skill Factory platform, and students who successfully graduated from the program could, for example, get Coursera certificates. It's very popular for some specialization on Coursera, or certificates from Russian yet tech companies. But we just started such an approach, and we don't have a good survey on impact of such certificates. So we're not sure.
I'm sure it's a debate that will continue long on after we recover from the pandemic. Nelly, both Joao and Andre have mentioned working with Coursera and how they're implementing the courses within their own modules. Tell us a little bit more about how Coursera is supporting universities to get students ready, skill them up for their jobs once they graduate.
Yeah, sure. So for those of you who don't know, Coursera has an offering called Coursera for Campus. And what this is, in its kind of rudimentary way, is all the courses and the specializations and the projects that we create with our amazing university and industry partners. We basically offer these on the Coursera for Campus platform, and institutions have the option to purchase licenses to access those courses and specializations. But it's not just a platform housing lots of content. It's also quite a sophisticated platform that basically has data, AI, and machine learning at its heart. And I think that's one of the strengths of what the platform offers. And to Joao's point around assessment and formative and summative assessment, etc., it enables universities through machine learning and AI to basically be able to track and intervene and perform the right interventions at the right time, either for students that are falling behind or those that are progressing more quickly than expected, to basically be able to adapt their learning at the right times. But it does this at scale. So it's a very, very powerful kind of back end to the platform that really tries to enhance learning and pedagogy and support universities in basically being able to do this with wider audiences. Coursera for Campus also has authoring, private authoring functionality and other features that then enable universities to be able to mix and match either the courses that are available on Coursera with their own, create blended programs in the kind of traditional sense of blending their own courses with those created by others, or also created blending programs in the sense of using on-campus programs with online programs as well. I think when it comes to thinking about employability and how we're supporting employability, what we're seeing is in recent years, we've started working more and more with industry. So we've historically worked very much with higher education institutions, but we've started partnering with the likes of Google and IBM and other big major companies. And the content and the programs that are being produced by industry, we're seeing a huge take up by our Coursera for Campus partners, in that ultimately they're designed by industry and they're being used either as add-ons onto degree programs or whatnot, or blended within to provide students those skills-ready and employment-focused skills and learning whilst they're studying their more kind of traditional academic pathway. So huge take up there, and we're going to carry on with harnessing this more and more. My vision and what I'm working with my partners on is being able to marry higher education and industry together, and really be able to kind of blend, to Andre's point around, still being able to get a degree, but still also having industry credentials or the industry-based learning. How can we bring the two together to create the perfect form of learning that meets both worlds?
Thanks for that, Nelly. And that relates to a question that's been put in the chat. And perhaps I can open this up to Joao and Andre. And it is about industry partnerships. And what more could universities be doing to partner with industries to fast track this skills agenda? Joao, do you want to pick that one up?
Yeah, so in our setting, as we are a medical school, our industry are the healthcare providers, the hospitals, the health centers, the private providers. And when we designed this curriculum, for instance, we brought them in and we asked them what skills they needed our students to have when they enter the market. What we are now doing is actually, as you're saying, we are trying to partner with them to have our students in their environment, so in the market environment during the course, so that the students can learn they can do like internships and rotations in these different partners. And something that we are doing, and I think for medical education that's relevant, is not only looking at the traditional healthcare providers, so the traditional employers of physicians, but also looking at different things. For instance, we are also contacting IT companies, pharma companies, companies with medical devices, because all these are places where our graduates will work. And we are bringing them in and asking for help in, for instance, designing some courses, asking them for what kind of skills they need our students to have, asking help, for instance, in designing even entire specializations. For instance, we are launching now with this new curriculum a degree of medicine with a major in engineering. So our students spend one entire year during the medical course in the engineering school, and they are partnering with IT companies and medical devices companies to work together with them on real problems so that they can have these skills. So yes, we are fast moving into a world in which employers and the industry has to partner with universities, and universities have to forget this old idea that they are the sacred place for knowledge to be acquired, because most of the knowledge now is produced actually in the companies and not in universities. So the teaching and the training of our students has to be in partnership with them, because otherwise we are missing and we're lagging behind.
Yeah, that's excellent point to lead me on to the next question that's been put to the group. And just in the final couple of minutes of our panel, I'm interested to hear everyone's thoughts. How do we ensure that teachers are adequately equipped to foster the skills and mindset we want to see in our higher education undergraduates? Teachers and academics are often content experts, but struggle with innovative didactic concepts. Andre, do you want to take that one on first?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I completely agree that our teachers lack the skills of digital education, but I think that's perfectly normal, because they were taught how to teach in person. Digital pedagogy, it's a relatively new field of study, and the problem with this that we don't have currently set of best practices that are accepted by major professors and schools in industry. And we have various types of digital tools and topics and approaches which actually contradict each other. And I think it's a very prominent area for research, and maybe in 5 or 10 years we will have best tools, best practices, and most of our professors and teachers will be able to use them. At least I hope so.
Thanks very much. And just our final minute, I'll give it to you first, Nelly, in terms of bringing faculty along in the skills development.
Yeah, sure. So I think the most important piece of the puzzle is to make sure that there's a really good digital central kind of team within the university, built with learning designers and people who are immersed in how to get the best out of online pedagogy, and then work with other organizations. For example, with Coursera, our premise isn't to basically provide all the solutions to universities, but to actually train those teams so that they in turn can train and keep a closer relationship with faculty and continuously be hearing about all the latest updates and the thinking that goes behind best practice. So I think having that in place is crucial. And then the next point is around how we can demonstrate to faculty that it's working and all the benefits of online learning, be it, at the very basic level, the take up of their courses, and how people are more engaged through the formative and summative assessments that we're demonstrating throughout their learning journey. And basically providing that continual evidence to faculty of how it might be improving their teaching methodology and how they actually might be more truly reaching students through the digital and how digital helps.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. I'm afraid we'll have to end it there, but thank you so much to our panelists for joining me today in a very vibrant discussion about advancing Europe's skills agenda. Thank you very much, and thank you all for watching.